Good morning. What I wanted to talk to you about today is essays once again. And I wanted to reassure you that there's just going to be a couple more learning about essay days, and then we're going to be getting into a fun activity where we're going to actually be writing some pen pal letters. So stick with me during these learning days, and something that you know is coming that you're going to enjoy. So today we're going to look at two different essays. One of them is written well. It has all of the parts that it needs. The other one, not so good. So I wanted you to see the difference so that you can avoid the bad things and you can continue doing the good things. All right, so again, this first paragraph has a name. I want you to think about what we call the first paragraph. Okay, if you thought of the word introductory, then you were absolutely right. Now there's two things that we find in the introductory paragraph. Think about what those two things would be. If you said attention getter and thesis statement, you're absolutely right. Now, to be honest, if you've got your notes in front of you and you're referring to those as I'm asking these questions, that's okay, because those visuals that you're seeing from yesterday are going to be good. It's going to help you to remember these different parts. All right, so yesterday we talked about how the attention getter hooks us into the story. Sometimes it can be a quotation, sometimes an interesting fact, sometimes a question, those kinds of things. And we're going to use the color orange. Okay, then the thesis statement is the main idea. It tells what the whole article is going to be about. It quickly lists the three things that we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to read the first paragraph, and in your mind, I want you to think, what would you highlight in orange for the attention getter? What would you highlight in blue for the thesis statement? Suzanne Diane Murphy once quoted, "Firemen never die. They just burn forever in the hearts of the people whose lives they've saved. Like lifeboats floating sailors to safety, organizations such as the Firefighter Support Foundation aid firefighters who in turn help us all. This organization provides professional training, equipment, and survivors assistance for firefighters. Let's help those who give their lives to share ours." Okay. Let me first of all point out that this is not a piece of paper that you have in front of you. You're just looking on the screen. Okay, and as we're looking at it, I want you to think, what would you highlight for your orange attention getter? Okay, a lot of you would have chosen this. Okay, this definitely works as an attention getter. It is a quotation that is being used. Okay, now this is a unique one that I haven't mentioned yet, where it says, like lifeboats floating sailors to safety. What is that? You're right, it's a simile. And in this case, they're using that simile as an attention getter too. So I could probably highlight all the way to here just because that's a full sentence. Okay, now if you hadn't done that second one, that's okay. That first one was definitely a really good one to highlight. Okay, so now what are you gonna highlight in blue? What's this whole essay going to be about? Okay, if you chose this next sentence, it lists all three things that are going to be talked about. In fact, when it lists them, it's listing them in the correct order, isn't it? So I should be expecting, as I'm reading, to come across first professional training. Second, I'm going to come across stuff about equipment. And thirdly, I'm going to be running across things about survivors assistance. Now, if you thought about highlighting this one in blue too, that's okay. Okay, because we are encouraging them to give money to this organization. Okay, and in fact, if you highlighted this part where it said Firefighter Support Foundation aid firefighters, that wouldn't be a bad thing to have in blue either. Okay, so don't worry if yours is slightly different than mine. Okay, now these next three paragraphs, remember, are called the what kind of paragraphs? You're right, the body paragraphs. There's one body paragraph, two body paragraphs, three body paragraphs, because we're going to be talking about three different things. And each of these paragraphs have three things inside of them. So I want you to think of the different colors that we used yesterday. What were those colors? You're right, stoplight colors. Green for transition words, yellow for the topic sentence, and then pink for the supporting details. Now that topic sentence tells what is the whole paragraph about. Okay, so I want you right now in your mind's eye to listen and to be looking for the transition, topic sentence, and supporting details. For starters, Firefighter Support Foundation distributes professional training. Free of charge, firefighters not only become trained in life-saving techniques, but also in injury prevention skills. Search and rescue teams and EMT units can also take advantage of this free training. Okay, what would you highlight in green for a transition? You got it. For starters is how they're starting off that paragraph. Okay, what would you highlight in yellow? The sentence that tells what the paragraph's about. You're right, that first sentence. Now, this person did it right. Okay, that this is what this paragraph is about. Some people will forget that topic sentence. And so you have to make sure that they have it before you highlight it. But yeah, this whole paragraph is about professional training. And they didn't go into details about the professional training because the details are found here. This would be your pink, right? Okay, now what did we call this part? Yeah, we called it our citation, or sometimes we might call it our source. They both mean the same thing, and we use the color purple. Okay, so next paragraph, watch for those same colors. Additionally, FSF helps purchase equipment. In Lewis County, Washington, for example, their search and rescue team received a $3,000 grant from FSF. With the money, they bought much needed water rescue vests and helmets. Since a lot of wildfire fighters have to buy their own equipment, FSF can help with that too. Some helmets alone can cost up to $500. Every penny helps. Okay, so what would be your green transition? Yep. Additionally, you'll notice that there's a comma after that. Okay, what would be your yellow topic sentence? Yep, we look for it in that first sentence. And is this whole paragraph about equipment? Yes, it is. They didn't go into details because here is our details. Okay, we've got details up to here. And then we've got a couple more details right there. Okay, now you might be wondering, like, hey, Mrs. Cornier, you have like 2 websites on there. Here's why. Okay, most of the information I got from the ffsupport.org. Okay, so that was my first source. That was telling me that how they were using it, that the wildfire fighters were using it, the $3,000 grant, all of that came from that website. Now, I personally was interested in finding out how much does a helmet cost. So I went to a totally separate website and I found this information. So I wanted to give credit to that website for that particular fact. Okay. All right. Last body paragraph. Lastly, but just as important, survivors receive assistance from FSF. In the United States, 100 firefighters perish each year. Paying bills and dealing with emotional scars, families need the aid provided by the Firefighter Support Foundation. Okay, what would be your green? Little bit tricky. Some of us wanted to just go lastly, but just as important. They're using that whole thing as a transitional phrase. Okay, so you could go all the way to that comma. Okay, what would be our yellow topic sentence? Okay, it's talking about survivors' assistance. That was what this whole paragraph's about. Okay, and this is dealing with all the what the survivors get. So when the families are the survivors, the people that are left behind, they're dealing with bills, they're dealing with scars when their loved ones die, and so it is all dealing with that. So those are our details. And again, some details are better than others. I like the fact that, there's 100 that die every year. I like the number up here, $500. I like when it was talking about $3,000 of grant money. When you can be really specific, it helps to really provide evidence to support whatever it is that you're talking about. Okay, and of course, we have our source down at the bottom where we got our information from. Okay, now this is our conclusion paragraph. It will look very similar to our our introductory paragraph up here. It too will have an orange attention getter. It too should have a blue thesis statement. So we're going to switch off of our stoplight colors, and instead we are going to be moving into our oranges and blues. Okay. As it's clear to see, the Firefighter Support Foundation provides professional training, equipment, and survivors assistance for firefighters. Let's help the firefighters who risk their lives every day to help save lives when emergencies arise. May they always burn forever in the hearts of the people whose lives they've saved. Okay, so first of all, I do see that there is a transition here. Do you see it? Okay. You wouldn't always have to start with a transition word, but this one uses it. Okay, now let's look for our orange attention getter. Okay, yeah, it even looks similar to this. They took part of that quote and they put it down there. Okay, now where is our blue thesis statement? The list the 3 things that we talked about. Okay, there's our thesis statement. Now, you could be worried about that sentence that's in the middle going, what color should I do it? But you know what? What I'm looking for is, do you know what a thesis statement is? Do you know what the main attention getter is? And if you have some of these that aren't highlighted, that's okay. You're giving me what, you're showing that you know your stuff. Okay. Now, one more thing for me to point out is here they said professional training was going to be first. This one's about professional training. Okay. Down here, it lists professional training first. Up here, equipment second. Equipment was second. And down here, equipment was second. Okay. Up here, we have survivor's assistance. Up here, survivor's assistance. And down here, survivor's assistance, all listed third. So those are all looking really good. All right. So one last thing that we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at a bad essay today, and then you're going to be done with your language arts for today. So hang in there. This time I'm going to need your help fixing up an essay that's not so good. It does